Hello there. If you like novels about arson, babies, tears and fractured friendships, then this is a novel for you. So I have never really made a YouTube video before. Well, not since I was like 15 anyway, and that doesn't really count. I do read a lot of different things and I have a lot of thoughts about them, but nothing has particularly come up where I've thought, oh, I must do a video essay about that. But that was until I read this. So Thrilled for You by Bourne. It was published back in January this year, so that's 2025 if you're watching in the future. And I've got to say, I didn't think I would gain so much from the book. Like, I didn't think that I would relate so much to the characters, but I really did. I really, really did. And I honestly think anyone that's been through a friendship breakup, or anyone that's struggled through motherhood, or is planning to have a baby, or is struggling to have a baby, might really appreciate this book, because it kind of covers all viewpoints, and it really tries to empathise with each of those experiences. I know for a fact that Holly is a new mother herself, and she wrote this book while she was struggling with motherhood and was in a dark place. So I think this was like a good outlet for her to explore those complicated feelings and to just get to grips with the fact that, oh my god, I'm going to be a mother. Like, this is, once you have a baby, that is it. It's the one decision that you can't undo. I can imagine for a lot of people it probably wouldn't sink in until that moment that you have a child and you're like, it's here, I've created life, what? Now, I'm not someone who can pretend to even know what that experience is like. I may look young, but I am actually 27, so I could technically be a parent by now. I could definitely have had a kid, or two, or three, or more, but no, I'm not in a place where that's possible right now. This book has been a really useful way for me to explore those thoughts a little bit more and think about my own views on motherhood and what it could mean to me one day, and also like my own kind of unconscious biases about it too, because I didn't realise how unempathetic I could be towards mothers until I read this book, because I often think, well, it's your choice to have a child, it was your choice to make such a weighted decision, so why are you complaining? But now I realise, like, it's not that simple. There are lots of complications that can arise from being pregnant or just raising a child, and they're hard to avoid. And I do completely understand that, but I don't think I truly felt how they would feel, and that's really hard to do if I'm not a mother. So, I mean, that's fair enough. But okay, I'm just going to get into the book now. I want to tell you all about it. An intense heat wave, a high-stakes baby shower. Will it all end in tears? Nikki, Lauren, Charlotte and Steffi have been friends since university. Now in their 30s, life is pulling them in different directions. But when Charlotte organises the baby shower of hell for pregnant Nikki, the girls are reunited. Under a sweltering hot summer day, tensions rise. And by the end of the day, nothing will ever be the same. Someone started a fire at the house, and everyone's a suspect. Is it Steffi, happily child-free but being judged by her friends? Is it Charlotte, desperate to conceive and jealous of those who have? Is it Lauren, who is finding motherhood far, far harder than she imagined? Or is it Nikki herself, who never wanted a baby shower anyway? In the aftermath, the police put together the facts, but the truth will shock everyone, even you. Ooh. I wasn't expecting it. I thought, this is an interesting ending. I'm not sure how I feel about the ending. However, I am going to talk about it later in the video. So you've got Steffi, Lauren, Nikki and Charlotte. Funnily enough, my name also being Lauren, I was like, oh, I can put myself in the shoes of this character. So we've got Nikki, who is heavily pregnant, and she is about to have this baby shower. We have Charlotte, who is arranging the baby shower, and she desperately wants a child but has been struggling to have one. So this baby shower is kind of like a way of her pouring all of her pain into another outlet, and it's all the stuff that she would have wanted at her own baby shower. So it's partially not about Nikki, it's a lot of it is about Charlotte, this whole event, because it's so over the top and high pressured. And that's part of the reason why things unravel as well, because there's so much going on and so much pressure for it to look perfect, but it's far from perfect. So you've got those two, and you've got Steffi, who is happily child-free. She is working in the world of publishing, and she's just had this massive successful book deal, being greenlighted by a few production companies, and her author that she represents being over the moon but also overwhelmed, and she's dealing with all that over a weekend. Really, she should be fully present at her friend's baby shower, but she's not, because it could wait till Monday, but she's like, oh my god, this is so exciting. But I do understand she's a character who thinks that motherhood is kind of cliche, and she thinks like it's the most easy achievement you could possibly have, like every woman's capable of it. But we know that's not true, don't we? Because obviously Charlotte's having her fertility issues. Well, we don't know if it's her or her partner, but we do know that it's a real struggle, and she wants a baby so badly. And then finally, the character who shares my name, Lauren. So she has recently had a baby. She's got baby boy, Woody. He is 9 months old, and she's finding motherhood really, really hard. So as the book unravels, we learn, spoiler alert, okay, so if you don't want to learn about her story, I would skip about a minute through this bit, okay? So she had a traumatic birth. Woody was like the wrong way round. She nearly died during childbirth. They had to go into a C-section, and then once she had had Woody, she was kind of in the state of like, I don't know if I want this, like, is this my baby? What is this? And then she struggles with a bit of postpartum depression, and then just struggles a lot with the general upkeep of motherhood, where Woody struggles to settle down and go to sleep, and is really, really needy, and wants her attention and her milk almost all the time, and she's not getting that much support from her partner. So it's like probably one of the hardest journeys through the book, in my opinion, but also I think objectively she is probably having the toughest time out of the 4 girls. So yeah, and a lot happens in this book, because we've got those different perspectives of motherhood, but we've also got this running theme of complicated female friendships, and why it gets so much harder as you get older. And that's something that really resonated with me, because in my 20s I've found friendships either failing unexpectedly or knowingly failing, and me trying to kind of move on or like shift the dynamic so that I can save face. I think this book covers all of that, really. So essentially what happens is the story follows on along 2 timelines, the main one being like the lead up to and during the baby shower, and ultimately the big fire that occurs. And then the other timeline is throughout all the police interviews that happen afterwards, where they interview the girls and figure out who did it. Like, it's a whodunit, so we need to find out. Ooh, mystery. And I think the beginning of the book really sets the tone for that, because initially you get an insight into the first interview, some of the newspaper article clippings about the fire, and then all the commenters that comment all their opinions on baby showers and how they managed to make a wildfire just by running a baby shower. And some of the examples are quite funny, but it also starts to encourage you to think about like why we have baby showers, why are they so important to us, and like, showing some skepticism about that. The first one, which I found quite amusing, I might have to bleep it out, but it was saying that God as My Witness 1974 has shared this story. The smoke-generating pyrotechnic device reveals the parents to be narcissistic, idiotic and it just added a lot to the story, because then we've got this outside view of the characters rather than straight in with the personal view, because the rest of the book is from the perspective of each of the women, which means it's an unreliable narrator in some aspects. But then on the other hand, it's to highlight the fact that we have such skewed opinions of other people. For example, you get Nikki judging Steffi for her experiences and saying how selfish she is for not paying attention at her baby shower. Meanwhile, Steffi is thinking, how selfish and self-absorbed is Nikki, like lapping up all the attention, accepting all these gifts, and it will never be enough for her, and she'll never be happy for me with my kind of achievement because she is much more important and having a baby is much more important. These girls do not understand each other at all. Are they even friends? Like, it comes across like they're frenemies in a way, because there's so much animosity. But anyway, I'm going to go back to the start of the book, which is the prologue. It sets the scene, it shows where the fire begins. And I just wanted to read a little snippet for you, just to get you intrigued. Prologue. The flames take the vulva pinata immediately. The crepe paper ripples in the magenta smoke, the sweets inside popping like corn kernels as they explode inside their wiry cage. The pinata falls onto the decking and there's a moment of stillness in me. The first time I felt calm in so long, as I take in the view thinking, wow, I've never seen pink smoke before. Soon the flames will claim the pile of duck-patterned wrapping paper, gorge on the coarse wool of the hand-knitted blankets and turn the fallen wall of peonies into a sweet, toxic perfume. I can tell already that everything is lost. That'll do for now. I'm not reading the whole thing, but this is from the point of view of... I think it's from the point of view of Nikki. She's talking about the fact that she's burned down her life, metaphorically, and then now she's looking at things literally burning down around her. It's not very clear, like it doesn't specify who is speaking, but as you can see, it's a nice introduction to the book, because, I mean, what an opener. The flames take the vulva pinata immediately. Like, I have never seen or thought of that combination of words before. And the rest of the story essentially follows on from the different perspectives of the women, and it starts with Nikki, because it's her baby shower, and she's like, oh my god, it's finally happening. I can't believe the day's finally here. So much anxious energy that she has, and she's sort of trying to come to terms with the fact she's got a whole life in her stomach, and she's waiting on her friend Charlotte to arrive to arrange the whole thing, and she's really anxious about that because she knows that Charlotte can go over the top sometimes and make it more stressful than it needs to be. And she's like always constantly internally rolling her eyes at all the stuff that Charlotte suggests to do and kind of mocking it a little bit, but sort of behind her back, which isn't very nice. And then you have the introduction of Lauren. So this is where showing her like getting up, looking after her little boy Woody, her husband Tristan, who doesn't really get out of bed to help with the feedings at night. Well, unfortunately he can't because she's still breastfeeding, and there are little moments throughout the book which shows that he's not really stepping up in the way he could. One example that really stuck with me was when she just wanted to have some respite looking after Woody, and they have an agreed time frame that he can watch TV in, but then it's like, oh, he can only have 10 minutes of Bluey episodes a day. And then in the tiny time frame that she hands over the child to Tristan while she goes to have a shower, he uses up one episode of Bluey in looking after him. And then she's like, oh my god, I've just spent the whole night with him, and in the hour that you have with our son, you've wasted 5 minutes of Bluey time, which I could have had to look after him. How selfish. And it's like, that's one small snippet, and yes, maybe this character wasn't thinking, how insensitive that is. he's thinking this is just something I'll do, sort him out. But it is very reflective of a lot of dynamics I see online where the mum's kind of doing everything and has a lot of the mental load. And I don't know if this is necessarily anyone's fault, because it's kind of ingrained from quite a young age, our roles in society, and we see how our parents brought us up and grandparents and etc. But it's not an excuse, and I do think a lot of the reasons why people are so scared of motherhood or resistant to it is because of the sheer amount of responsibility, not just about looking after their child, but like telling their partner what to do in looking after their child. And I don't think that should be put on them, to be honest. There are certain things where people can help out without asking, you know. But basically she really struggles with him, and she's like really kind of resenting him, actually. She really resents Woody for making her so sleep deprived, and quite a few times throughout the book you kind of get concerned, thinking, oh my gosh, is she gonna do something to her baby? Because you know, you worry. Maybe I've watched too much TV, to be honest. I probably have, but I've seen those moments where the mum kind of snaps and she's like, "Arr!" And then she like, I don't know, throws a baby in the sea, or no, she doesn't. In fact, she's actually being a really good mother, and she's showing up whenever she can. Whenever he cries, she's there, comforting him, even though she feels absolute crap. Her friends describe her as being such a vibrant, energetic, bubbly person who wears lots of bright colours and is so, just so warm and so full of life. And then they see her at the baby shower in a drab navy dress, absolutely exhausted and kind of out of it, and they're like, where has Lauren gone? Like, they don't understand. They've not seen her for months. She's not really been in touch because of the baby. And this is kind of a moment in the book where I realised, wow, they did not show up for her. Like, they didn't think to ask. They didn't think to check in and see if she needed any support or help. Like, a lot of the characters just assume that she's okay and she's happy now just because she has a baby. And they think, oh, she hasn't got time for us anymore. But the point is, it's nothing to do with them. It's to do with her and how much she's struggling. But they don't really see that until the very end of the book. Moving on to Steffi. Steffi is probably the character I relate to the most, because I have mixed feelings about whether or not having children is right, especially if you're not 100% sure about it. And this is something that's echoed quite a lot in her own relationship with her mother. Her mother wants Steffi to be independent. She wants her to go after her dreams, whatever they are. And she says to her at one point in the book, like, oh, you know, it's a beautiful thing having a child, but it is hugely limiting, and it might stop you from having access to all your other dreams, so you have to really be sure that you want it before you go for it. I can't remember the exact quote, but it basically, her mum is quite sensible in telling her how to consider this huge life choice. And then, of course, she doesn't have a child and she doesn't plan to. She wants to pursue her career. So yeah, she's quite an interesting character because she's got her own issues too. Like, she's still grieving her mum because her mum passed away and she was looking after her when she was ill. She struggles to find nice guys who understand her situation and that are on the same page as her. So that's tricky. But her friends find that kind of annoying rather than sympathising with her. They're like, oh, boo-hoo, because they think her opinion is wrong, essentially. Or at least Nikki does. And yeah, so it's like Steffi goes through this kind of loneliness, I suppose, where she feels like the odd one out in the group, and she finds an article online that she really relates to, but she doesn't agree with all parts of the article because some of them have quite strong opinions about other friends with babies. But she likes the article for what it says about dating experiences, so she insensitively and without critical thinking shares it online for all her friends to see. And of course, they don't see the reasons behind why she shared it. They just see the section in the article which has extreme views on friends with babies and how that impacts friendships and how selfish they are. And of course, they all then think of her as being very insensitive. They feel really, really hurt by her opinions. And yeah, at one point, Steffi overhears them talking about it, and she's like, oh my God, like, I thought Lauren would stand up for me, because Lauren's like agreeing with Nikki about the article. She's like, she didn't even come to my defense. But then at the same time, like, oh my God, I didn't realize that this article had this impact on them and made them feel like this. And then of course you've got Charlotte, and she has such a tragic story. She's gone through uni with the girls, being the peppy one, like being the sort of positive, upbeat one all the time, and always wanting kids, and then finally finding someone to have kids with, only to find out that it's really hard for her to get pregnant, and she's trying all the different methods to get pregnant, and then all of a sudden her friends around her just fall pregnant really easily, and she really, really deep down quite resents that, even though she's like, no, I'm really happy for them. Honestly, I'm so happy for them. But when you really dig into the emotions there, she's like, oh, how dare they get pregnant? How dare they have it so easy? Like, and when Lauren's complaining about the struggles of looking after Woody, she was like, I would kill to have those struggles right now. Which, obviously, when you look at it objectively, that sounds insane. But at the same time, you understand it's because she's like, this is a privilege. Having a child is a privilege that you're not even aware that you've got. Like, be grateful for your baby, because I really want one. Of course, like, why don't they have more compassion for her in this situation? How hard is that? And to make matters worse, during the baby shower, spoiler alert, basically, she is pregnant, finally, but during the shower, when things get stressful, she starts feeling like, oh, I'm bleeding. She runs to the toilet and she rings her partner, panicking about it. He's like, oh my God, just leave. Like, you've done so much already. They'll look after it. And she's like, no. I need to see the whole plan for it. It must be perfect, absolutely perfect. And she doesn't leave, but she's like stuffing tissue down her pants to like stop it. And she's not told anyone about this. So she's currently dealing with it alone. And it's so stressful to read. You're like, just go to the hospital. Little do you know, Nikki doesn't even give a toss about this baby shower anyway, so why are you doing all of this? Who is this for? And also, your health comes first, you know? And you want to shake her because she's just such a martyr, and you're like, you want this baby, you've been wanting this baby for so long, get to the hospital, get treated and see if it's okay. Infuriating. At the end, it all builds up and we see them all kind of slowly falling out, because Steffi overhears Nikki and Charlotte talking about the article, about her selfish lifestyle, about her not wanting to be there because she's always on her phone. In Steffi's mind, she wants to talk to the different production companies, her author. She wants to like make sure that her author's feeling okay about this massive book deal. And she's like, oh, can I just have this one day for me, like to celebrate and get this out of the way and process this? But then of course to Nikki, it looks like she's being really, really selfish and just ignoring her. And then another build-up happens where Charlotte overhears Nikki talking to Phoebe. So Phoebe is a friend that Nikki makes through work. She keeps like pushing her to go out on late nights and come back to her place like on random Tuesdays, like during the week. And I'm like, is her husband gonna be okay with this? Like this random person at her workplace that's younger than her? But either way, I was like, she is being a bit manipulative and like getting too personal. And then lo and behold, later in the book, it does turn out there's a bit of a romance there, and Nikki's dealing with her identity and like, do I like women? Should I explore this feeling? And then, of course, it all blows up because she tells Matt, and he is not happy, but ultimately they stay together and they decide to have a baby together. And that's one of the main reasons why Nikki doesn't go with Phoebe, because she wants a baby, or so she thinks. Quite frankly, it seems like she's just going through the motions, and that's because that's what she's been told life should look like, and that's what she's supposed to do next. But is it what she really wants? I don't really know. But Phoebe turns up at this party, annoyingly, because Charlotte invites her because she's seen her on her social media, but she doesn't really know what Phoebe means to Nikki. Phoebe spends the whole time at the party being really, really disrespectful and disparaging towards Charlotte and all her attempts to make this baby shower amazing. And she just makes all these rude comments about it and like how, I guess, fake it all is and how silly it is. But then there's this moment where they're talking privately about it and Charlotte overhears in the midst of a meltdown, and then she confronts the both of them saying, you know, like, F you, like, I can't believe this. Like, I've done all this for you and all you can do is talk rubbish about me, and I thought you were better than that, kind of thing. And I feel really sorry for Charlotte in that moment, because, to be honest, she doesn't really do anything to make you dislike her. She's just really sweet. I think maybe she's a people pleaser, something like that, but it does feel like at times the whole friendship group kind of not looks down on her exactly, but they're like, oh, you know, that's Charlotte, typical Charlotte. It's like they've put her in this box. In her mind, this is something she's proud of, this identity she has as being like the person that tries the hardest and is ambitious and plans everything, is a trait that she thinks is really important. And alongside this, she always takes photos, like lots of photos at the event, and they all kind of make fun of her and go, oh god, not again, you know, taking photos, do we have to? And then she points out, you act like this is cringy and not something you want to do, but secretly you'll be glad of those photos later. And I think that's so true. It's like all these friends are trying to act like it doesn't mean something to them, or that somehow wanting to capture the moment and wanting things to look and be nice is somehow superficial and not genuine. But to be honest, they're the ones being less genuine than Charlotte. So yeah, I felt really sorry for her in that moment. And it means that then, of course, she really hates Phoebe by that point. She didn't like her to start with, making all these comments about the shower, if Nikki actually wants all this, and then finally hearing them talking about her. And then there's a moment where they're all in the bedroom upstairs shouting at each other because it all kicks off. Spoiler alert, basically Matt turns up to the baby shower because he wants to surprise Nikki to be there for the gender reveal that she didn't know was going to happen. Whoa! And Charlotte's got it all planned out perfectly, and she's going to let off a smoke cannon and it's going to be pink because it's a girl. And then he turns up and sees Phoebe there and he's like, I thought you'd stopped talking to her. I thought you'd blocked her. And it's like, oh my god, it's gonna get hairy. And obviously, as you can imagine, a lot of arguing happens. Phoebe leaves. He doesn't really want to look at Nikki. He's like, I can't believe you right now. And then he just drives off in their car. There's tension up in the air, and they're all kind of arguing with Lauren as well, because Lauren's kind of ignoring her baby during the baby shower. And there's a moment where Steffi's upstairs using the upstairs toilet, and she overhears Woody crying, and she's like, can Lauren not hear this? She's got a baby monitor in her hand. Meanwhile, Lauren has actually muted the baby monitor because she just wants a little break for a bit, and she's trying to follow the advice of other people to let her baby settle and self-soothe, because to be honest, she will get no respite if she goes in there every single time. I'm not going to pretend to know what is the right advice about this with kids, so I'm not going to comment on this, but from the point of view of someone who's burnt out, who's had no sleep on the day of the baby shower, I completely understand why she would just reach for the wine instead of her baby. You know what I mean? Like leaving the baby upstairs for a bit and just kind of wanting to talk to adults and be an adult for a second. But Steffi, not really knowing the full extent of her struggles with Woody, is really judgmental in that moment, and she's picking Woody up like, oh, it's okay, shh. And then all of a sudden Lauren sees this on camera and she's like, what are you doing? and she's like taking it as you've massively violated, a boundary here. Like, don't come for my parenting. Don't judge me for how I do or don't, deal with situations. And then they have a big argument about that, and then it all blows up. And then there's a moment. Do I spoil it? Do I give you the ending? Oh gosh, here we go. But it turns out none of them started the fire in the end. The fire was started by Woody, the baby. Yeah, it was an accident, which I guess I would have guessed anyway, because I'm like, yes, these women are complicated and full of anger, but I don't think any of them really wanted to start a fire. Like, they have, like, especially when one's pregnant and the other's got a child, and one of them is also potentially pregnant, Like, none of them have a reason to cause that kind of damage or harm to people around them. Basically, Lauren has her eye off Woody for a second because she's just in bits and feeling so upset. And then he crawls outside, somehow pulls the cap off the smoke grenade, which is waiting outside for the gender reveal. And then, of course, it's a blisteringly hot day. It's like a heat wave. So the hot smoke goes everywhere. But because there's no adult, the smoke grenade is just lying on the decking on this wood in the heat, causes a real fire which spreads to the garden, to the house, and then across all the fields, causing a massive wildfire. And they have to get out of there pronto, all in Lauren's car. But Lauren's not in a state to drive because she's feeling absolutely guilty and overwhelmed that she had put her son's life at risk like that. She didn't look at him for a second and he nearly hurt himself, and he fell backwards, hit his head, there was smoke, so she was in pieces. And then in that moment they realise, we have not been there for her. Oh my gosh, how have we not seen how much she is struggling? And I think that is the final moment in the book where these characters finally realise that they've been so wrapped up in their own problems, they've not truly seen their other friends, and then they all finally come together in that moment and help her, which is really nice to see. But then at the same time I was like, I kind of wanted them to address the issues properly, and I wanted them to maybe have some fractures still, but obviously in that moment they had to come together to get out of there and be safe, so that probably does bring people closer, you know what I mean? And then they all have to defend her in the interview because she's like, they're going to take my baby away, because she was not paying attention to him and nearly risked his life. So they all have the same story in the police interviews, and they're all protecting Lauren. And then, to be honest, I was a bit disappointed with the ending. I think that Holly Bourne wrapped up a little bit too neatly, in my opinion. I think it's one of those things where it starts out so complex and gritty and messy, and I thought something like this needs a bit of an incomplete, messy ending. Otherwise it feels like it was all for nothing. Like, where's the lesson that's been learned? But I suppose, to argue that point of view, the lesson has been learned. That's why they're all friends again. Because in the epilogue, they're all really close again. And Steffi is finally getting the celebration she deserved. And I'm like, yeah, well done. They're all actually genuinely happy for her. They just didn't have time when they were worrying about motherhood. And then she's having this big party celebration for another book launch or some other deal. And of course, Charlotte being Charlotte makes an ice sculpture for her. And that was quite fun, and I like that. It was a sweet ending. I just felt it doesn't really address the issues that come up in those long-term resentments people have in friendship. And the reality is, not everyone comes through to the other side. Most of us are cowards, including myself. I find it really hard to confront people about their behaviours, especially when it's subtle or something they're not completely aware about, because then I feel like I'm being the bad guy, and I hate being the bad guy. And I think maybe that's something that could have been shown in the book. So with Nikki and Steffi, I wonder, would they have really been friends still after this? I'm not sure they were entirely compatible as friends anyway, because Because when you look at the flashbacks to university, it doesn't seem like they have that much in common. Like, Nikki's quite traditional and very sweet and very demure and very mindful. And then Steffi is like very out there, very gregarious, very good with people and connecting, and she's having a lot of one-night stands and she's proud of that. She's kind of owning it, and I think Nikki always secretly judges her for that. And then of course there's the whole complicated triangle where Steffi sleeps with Matt before he meets Nikki, and then the morning that he comes down after being in her bed, he meets Nikki and they chat and they're getting on really well, so he doesn't come back up to bed. So then Steffi comes down like, hi, you've forgotten about me. And then obviously it's love at first sight, and then eventually it comes out that I've been seeing him. I hope this doesn't cause bad blood between us. You know, she's like trying to protect her, but also not really. It's almost like she's rubbing salt in the wound, like, we're really happy. I hope you understand. And it's like, okay. And then Steffi's eventually fine with it, but Nikki for some reason isn't. Despite the fact that they had a moment before she met him, she resents Steffi for that moment and constantly mistrusts her and Matt and doesn't want them talking to each other, and this is what impacts the friendship. And I'm like, honey, why would you let a man get between you? Was your friendship that strong to start with? I don't really understand their friendship, to be honest. All the others kind of make sense. Like, people want to protect Charlotte, they appreciate her for all the effort she puts in. Lauren's like the glue, where she kind of, everyone likes her, she's very easily likeable, and just quite a strong-willed character. And of course, as I said, Steffi is good at talking to everyone, and she's kind of like someone to look up to. Like, she's kind of cool and doesn't give a damn. But Nikki, I didn't like her, quite honestly. I thought she was a really dislikable character. I sometimes didn't like the other characters. They had their moments, but I understood their flaws and I felt sorry for them, ultimately. But yeah, Nikki just got on my nerves. So yeah, it's interesting really, because I thought in real life we're not always good at resolving conflicts. In real life you can't always come back from those moments with someone, and ultimately people do change, and it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, or it doesn't mean that the friendship wasn't worth it to start with. I do feel like that could have been explored more in the book, but then again at the same time maybe that would have been too much content for one book because it was already covering a lot. I think one thing the book did really well though was giving enough attention to each individual perspective on motherhood and the struggles that come with it. I definitely feel like it could have been longer. Like, I think I would have loved more flashbacks to their time at university and more interactions between the friends separately outside of the baby shower, because I really wanted to understand their dynamics more. It only really came to little moments like arguments between them during and up to the house fire, but I would have loved maybe like seeing some moments where maybe Lauren visits Steffi, or Charlotte and Nikki go out into town or something, just like to see how they actually talk to each other individually, because sometimes as a group I think people forget that like your individual relationships with people can be so different. I don't truly think you can just be a group all the time. It doesn't always work. Like, there's such a different dynamic when you're one-to-one compared to when you're a group as well. But that's just a small thing. But yeah, the other thing is, like I said, I would love to explore that complex side of friendship more. But that might be something for another book, maybe, because I don't think that was the main goal with Holly's writing on this. I think the goal was to talk about, you know, seeing the mother, not just the baby, and not just the choices being made. Because I think the problem is mothers become invisible, and that's a real problem because they're so important. You know, they are carrying life, and they're working so hard, non-stop, without any kind of credit or payment to raise this child almost perfectly. And let's face it, most of that responsibility lands on the mother. And then they don't really get thanked for it enough. That's the message of this book. Lauren is doing everything she can to be a good mother, and she is a good mother. Despite all the struggles she goes through, she is a great mother. Her friends don't really see that. But another lesson I took away from this book is, for God's sake, just talk to your friends. When things get hard, just tell them. Tell them how hard you're finding it. You know, you can't really bear a grudge if you are actually told what's going on with that person. Because I think a lot of miscommunication happens where we don't have enough information about the situation. You know, for example, if Charlotte had just said, hey, I might be finally pregnant, don't tell everyone, I just want to tell you guys, I don't want this to overshadow the baby shower, but I thought you should know. Then maybe she could have let go of that fact. They could have been happy for her, I guess been less annoyed with her approach to making the baby shower, and also helped her out when she was struggling with a potential miscarriage. You know? She would have had someone to maybe take her to the hospital, or, you know, take over from the planning, and then she could have done it without suffering in silence. And then additionally with Nikki, maybe if she'd have told someone about her complicated friendship with Phoebe, she wouldn't have been so alone, and maybe her friends would have been more open-minded than she thought. And then maybe if Lauren had just told people how much she was struggling and reached out, they could have gone, hey, oh my god, let me take some of the burden off of you. But then at the same time, I do think as friends, it was kind of on them to check in with her, because as a mother, do you really have the time and energy to think about asking for that help? I don't know, probably not. And then of course, finally with Steffi, she could have told them about her successful, you know, launch. She could have told them that she had some exciting news, but maybe what she could have done is go, something really exciting is happening at work. I'll tell you all about it next week or after the baby shower. But if I'm a little distracted today, that's why. I mean, just a few sentences to explain why you might be acting a certain way or feeling a certain way would solve so many of the problems, you know? I think this is something we all struggle with in life. There are times where it doesn't really occur to me to go to people about something that I might be finding difficult. Thing is, I'm quite hyper independent, and I assume that I can just deal with it by myself, but sometimes I go through it and I'm like, oh, that would have been so much easier if I'd have just gone to my friends. I don't know why I do it. I think maybe partially because I'm an only child, partially because I've seen it modelled to me growing up, like this sort of martyrdom. I don't know, but let's not go into my psychology. The book itself, though, it really, as you can tell, it really got me thinking. It was so easy to read as well. It was so fast-paced because you just kind of, the plot hits you, like you kind of can't stop reading because it's just so easy to get engrossed in the storyline, and it's all happening at once, and it's all in the space of like 3 hours. It's amazing. But yeah, I think the only thing that disappointed me was the ending. It was too happy. I don't think life is like that, but it was a nice, satisfying conclusion for the women, I suppose. But yeah, check it out. So Thrilled for You by Holly Bourne. Available everywhere.